Whether it's the faces of those he came to know while living for 10 years in Ardra, County Donegal, or those of children he found caught up in the ravages of war and conflict, in the Lebanon, in Nicaragua, in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. American photojournalist Michael Kienitz is widely recognised for his skill in capturing the raw essence of a scene in one single shot.
It isn't just a walk up and take a snap, it's get to know the people, living with the people. It's a very intimate relationship. Even though it's brief, it's still incredibly intimate because you're coming away with a portion of this person's life.
This means getting to know his subject, be it in Nicaragua in the 70s or here in Ardra.
In the 90s, one of my favorite characters who lived out on Lowrose Point was Peter Boyle, because he built the most beautiful stone walls. He was over 80 years old and still building these walls. It was shortly after lunch, and I headed out towards Mahara from Lowrose Point, and there was old Peter not building the wall, but taking a nap on one of his walls. So that's the picture I got here.
The napping stonewaller is part of his exhibition at Man-Made Images in Mount Charles, Ireland's first and only commercial photographic gallery. Being here to support it gives Michael the chance to renew old acquaintances, like with All-Ireland champion fiddler in 56 and 59, John the Tay Gallagher.
And I must say that picture is so popular in America, so people just love it. And I'm hoping, John, we sell some up in Mount Charlotte, and then I'm splitting the money with you.
Oh,
I think it's only fair.
That'd be nice.
We sell one, we split the money. That's the deal.
Michael's old cottage home was out on Lochras Point. It was his photography that first brought him here in the early 80s.
I had made several trips to Northern Ireland to photograph the Troubles, and I'd always been amazed at the instant difference between crossing the border into the Republic of Ireland. It was so relaxed. People got along. It had a rich culture. I just loved spending time here. In many respects, even before I moved here, I would always come down here to kind of decompress from the tension of what I had seen and photographed in Northern Ireland.
With each visit he adds to his collection, documenting the lives of those who had welcomed him into their community.
Eddie, is it possible to have your chair a little more this way so I see a little more of your face? We're just so giving and so kind. I'd go out with them lobster fishing, I'd help them with their chores, and I knew that I had arrived when they had asked me to judge the turf at the local Ardra show, because here's the yank, the blow-in, and now he's judging the turf. You know, I knew that somehow I'd arrived.
But it was on the international front that Michael carved out his reputation. His interest in conflict and war began on his home territory of Madison in Wisconsin.
I think when I seriously became a photographer was when I attended university, and I had studied political philosophy. And at the time, the Vietnam War was raging. As a student, often going to class, there'd be very large protests. And the things I would see on the way to college, I often didn't recognize the next day that the way the media reported them. So I thought, I'm going to photograph what actually transpired. And I was very fortunate. In the first year I did that sort of photography. I had pictures in Time, Newsweek, and Esquire magazine. So I thought, well, this is how I'm going to earn a living. I'm going to become a photographer.
He worked for Andy Warhol. He was the house photographer at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Interesting work, but for Michael it had no substance, no meaning.
So just about then, there was this revolution raging in Nicaragua by the Sandinistas. And I got to the city of Esteli right when the bombs were still dropping and there was unbelievable fighting. It immediately came home to me that people throughout war try to live more or less a normal existence. And so there's this unbelievable dichotomy between the actual war and the people just trying to cope with their existence while the war is going on. And that became basically a central tenet for all my photography after that. Primarily, I will focus on children and the elderly simply because they're the ones who suffer the most, have the least say in what's transpiring.
Many of those images are included in the exhibition at Mount Charles.
Those photos are not portraits. It's something more than that. It tells a story, and that's what I loved about his pictures. What I recognized in Michael Kienitz's pictures is that he has a lot of compassion for his subjects.
How have people reacted to the images?
They're a bit overwhelmed by what the story it tells, how those kids enjoy being in those kind of war-torn zones and still having fun. And it tells the story of the old people who are comfy in the work, who are happy, and that's the overall reaction which I get.
It's 30 years since he began, but he realises that history has a way of repeating itself.
A couple of years ago, when the Israelis bombed southern Lebanon, and the pictures I saw, I said, oh my God, in 1980 this was going on, the exact same thing. I was there documenting this. Nothing's changed. If anything, it's worse.
That inspired him to collate his work in Small Arms Children of Conflict, a testament to how young children survive through the violence and conflict that surrounds them.
I think in Belfast what the photographs largely reveal is the energy and the spirit the children had despite the troubles. The boy on the bus, I think, is emblematic again of the hope, despite all around them, what's transpiring, the hope and the joy that he's found in his makeshift playground of that carcass of a burned out bus. And this is probably one of the photographs that most relates to how the children, despite what's going on around them, just seem to get by.
Any profit he makes on the publication gets ploughed back into local community charities. And Michael is as keen now to get the best picture as he was when he first began.
I want people to see, and I want to be able to communicate to the person who's viewing the photograph what this person's life is like. That's what I try and come up with in my portraits of them.